What's going down, everybody? It's your boy, that guy, my high, tuning back in for another reaction. This time we got top 10 real prisoners who are far too evil for hell, part 2. I do believe we did part 1 a couple weeks back, so go back and check that out. If you can't find it, just let me know, because then we might have to just go back and do that one too, if we haven't. But first, we got to give a big shout out to all the members. Gary Willis, My Hood Life, Nugget, Liz, Amy Jane Doe, Lynn, Mad Creeker, Driver Stotts, Lynn Willow, Misty Summers, Mama Dukes, Taylor, Aaron, Casey Girl, and Token Tug. And we are missing one. I did hit him up. It was Ryan Parks, I'm pretty sure. Long time member, so I did hit him up to see if it was just some of the weird stuff that YouTube's been doing, kicking members off, or something maybe just didn't update, or whatever the case might have been. But shout out to Ryan Parks as well, because he was a long time member. So hopefully he does return. And if you want to join and get a shout out, and have some of the good vibes and perks and all the nonsense that comes with being a member of this channel, go ahead and hit that join button down below. You got 3 different options to choose from. If not, just hit that subscribe button and that bell notification, because that's free 99, baby, and we're trying to get to 100K. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump into this. We got top 10 real prisoners who are far too evil for hell. Let's see who they talking about this time.
All right, we've got a lot of serial killers to talk about today, so let's dive right in. Here is part 2 of the top 10 real prisoners who are too evil for hell. Starting off at our number 10 spot, we have Scott Lee Kimball. This is a man who took the lives of at least 4 people between the years of 2003 and 2004, but I say the words "at least" because although it's never been able to be proven, it is thought that he actually took the lives of somewhere around 20 plus people. During the first of his 2 crime-filled years, Scott actually worked as an FBI informant, but to none of our surprise.
You know what is so weird too about the title of this that I didn't really pick up on the first part is, how can you be far too evil for a place that's meant for evil people? Like, wouldn't the eviler the better? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we talk about the devil and, you know what I'm saying, like that type of nonsense, hell, like whatever mythical creatures and shit you want to talk about down there. But the point is it's meant for people who were evil. So how could you be far too evil for a place meant for evil people? That is just an oxymoron that hurts my brain. Let's continue.
He was one of the worst informants of all time. Not only did he rarely provide any sort of evidence that actually ended up being useful, but much of the evidence he provided ended up later being proven false. He was caught in 2006, not only for these horrific crimes, but many others as well, which included things like fraud and forgery. He ended up being sentenced to 70 years in prison, and he is still currently serving that sentence. In our number 9 spot today, we have Charles Cullen. This guy used to be a nurse who took the lives of his patients throughout his career, and he may be one of the worst serial killers ever recorded. He confessed to taking the lives of 40 people, but through subsequent interviews, it became apparent that the number was way higher than 40. He just couldn't remember the names of them all. But of course, he could.
Maybe not. I don't remember any. Like, I mean, we've just seen there's been a lot of nurses or doctors who have taken advantage of their positions for whatever reason. Some of them it's like, oh, I felt like I was doing a good deed and helping these suffering people, and other people were had weird, I don't want to call it a fetish, but just weird kind of almost fetishes where they just, had like a God complex and was like, I'm going to go ahead and take all my anger out on you. Whoa! Like, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I don't think we've seen this guy in particular, because I don't remember any of them other nurse ones doing over 40. Like, what? I mean, I know that one lady, it was like 30 or something like that, but 40 plus? You just can't remember. Like, oh, bro.
Remember the details of his crimes against them. His crimes started in 1988 and spanned over a decade into 2003. In October of 2003, when a patient at a hospital passed away from low blood sugar, the authorities were called. This person was Charles' final victim, and authorities began looking into him and investigating his past employment history. On December 12th, 2003, authorities were arresting him and charging him with only 1 count of his crimes, but he just ended up admitting to 40. He ended up pleading guilty to his crimes and arranged a plea deal where authorities would not seek the death penalty if he cooperated. During one of his court proceedings, he continuously asked the judge to step down and apparently repeatedly chanted, "Your Honor, you need to step down," for 25 minutes, even after he was restrained and gagged for his outbursts. It is thought that his victims might be up in the 400 range, which is truly unbelievable. Charles was sentenced to 18 consecutive life sentences and will be eligible for parole in 2403. So let's hope he doesn't make it that long. In our number 8 spot.
So what y'all just gonna do? They're gonna do what some states do, and they just gonna bury your ass on the prison grounds, and they're not gonna let nobody have your body. They ain't gonna release you to your family until 400 years later, type shit. Like, okay, oh, yep, you guys should serve all of this, bruh. They said he got over 400. Yeah, he that right there. Out of everyone we've heard so far, from that first list to any other, evil people list, like that takes the cake right there. We've never heard of anybody who was even speculated of doing over 400. Bruh. Yeah, let that sink in. 400, 400.
We have Hebert Mullen. Okay, I'm a true crime fan, and the more I learn, the more that being a person living in California in the 1970s seems like a terrifying experience. Like, seriously, there were so many horrible, some of the worst serial killers who were active in the state at this time. I don't know how anyone got any sleep or did anything. Hebert is just one of the many who were active at this time. It is said that Hebert, before his crime spree, was quite bright and well-liked. He was voted most likely to succeed in high school, but by his mid-30s...
Like the mustaches back then, bro, like, I don't know if I could take anyone serious back in the day when, that style of mustache was just popular. Like, like his mustache is not working, but it looks like one of them, like Reno 911 or whatever the fuck it is. That what show I'm talking about. Like all the damn little state trooper cop fucking mustaches, bro. Like it's just
had taken a dark turn, and he was now a serial killer who would go on to take the lives of at least 13 people. To be perfectly honest, Hebert definitely had some mental illness struggles that greatly contributed to his horrific crimes that he committed. That does not excuse what he has done, but it would be completely unfair to not mention that part of the story. Experts have explained that Hebert suffers from paranoid schizophrenia, and he believed that his crimes were preventing earthquakes in California. He only believed this sort of fantasy more after his arrest because coincidentally...
I know that's not funny to laugh at because when someone's got mental illnesses and shit, like, it's not funny. Like, that's not funny. But what is funny, though, is how you correlate hurting people with stopping earthquakes. Like, bro, like, how do those two things even coincide at all? Like, I'm...
No earthquakes in California during his crime spree, but there was one shortly after his arrest. In 1973, he was sentenced to life in prison, and although he has been up for parole a number of times, he has been denied every single time, with the next hearing taking place in 2025. In our number 7 spot today, we have Luis Garavito. Luis gained a nickname from the media of the Beast, and I think that's a great indication of the nature of his atrocious crimes. He is said to be one of the worst serial killers in the entire world, and it is believed that his victim count is up in the 300s range, which is absolutely shocking. He confessed to 100...
Bro, what is with all these people? Oh, and he confessed to 100 of them? Hold up. But okay, now we got somebody competing. We got somebody competing. Not only is he speculated of 300, but he actually admitted to 100 of them, or however many, 100 plus or whatever. But the other dude, it was speculated up 400 plus, but he had only admitted to 40 of them. You take your pick as far as who's in the lead. God damn.
47 crimes, and he was found guilty on 139 of those counts, which puts his sentence at 1,853 years. But here's the thing. This trial took place in Colombia, where he lives, and there is a law which puts the maximum sentence to 30 years. He was sentenced in 1999, meaning there's only a few years of this sentence left. He also had years taken off of his sentence because he assisted police in the search to recover some of the victims' bodies, which means that just next year, in 2023, he is eligible for parole. According to Luis himself, he committed these crimes because he had made a deal with the devil, and he explained that satanic ritual was involved in all of his crimes. In our number 6 spot today, we have Randy Kraft.
That goes to show you how wildly different, the laws are. Like, you had that guy right before him, or the dude with the 400 bodies or whatever, got 18 consecutive life sentences, okay? And wasn't eligible for parole until 2,400 and something or whatever the hell she said. This dude damn near has the same goddamn spreadsheet. Got convicted in a different country. he's eligible for parole next year. You know what I'm saying? He gonna be rocking these streets, and then he gonna be back on the streets here soon. That's wild.
More commonly known as the scorecard killer, this monster is thought to have tormented and then taken the lives of 16 different young men from 1972 to 1983. Most of his crimes were committed in California, and he most often would pick up his victims as they were hitchhiking near military bases. The reason for his nickname is because of this strange and sinister list he had that had cryptic references to each of his victims. Based on this list, it is thought that he may have taken the lives of more than 50 people, which is beyond disturbing. When Randy was finally caught, he was pulled over by the police, who, when they went around to the passenger side, discovered the body of a 25-year-old Marine who would become Randy's final victim. Randy has been sitting on death row at San Quentin for over 25 years for these crimes, and despite his conviction and death sentence, and the gruesome discovery on the day he was caught, Randy still maintains his innocent plea.
Like, bro, we've seen people run for less. We've seen people run for having suspended driver's licenses and feeling like it was the end of the world. We've seen people drive their cars into lakes. We've seen people take police on crazy high-speed, 130-plus-mile-hour, goddamn, highway chases and shit, like, for less. And he pulled over with a dead body, a dead Marine, not just a dead military server. Like what? Oh, he got balls. He had balls of steel.
Something's telling me he just might be lying. In our number 5 spot today, we have Dennis Rader. The BTK, whose real name is Dennis Rader, was one of the worst serial killers from 1974 to 1991. He left taunting letters for police and newspapers where he described his crimes, but thankfully, this annoyingly large and misplaced ego is what led to his demise. After a 10-year hiatus on his disgusting crimes, he couldn't keep his mouth shut, so he began communicating with the media again in 2004. This communication, combined with his lack of knowledge on how technology works, led to his arrest in 2005. During his trial, he didn't apologize for his crimes, but he did describe them in full detail, which is horrifying and extremely eerie. I could not even imagine having to be there during that. After his trial, he ended up being sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences with a minimum of 175 years. When Rader was first arrested, when the police were taking him to the station, an officer asked him, "Mr. Rader, do you know why you're going downtown?" To which he replied, "Oh, I have some suspicions why." In our number 4 spot today, we have Gary Ridgway. This horrible human being is also sometimes known as the Green River Killer, and his crimes took place somewhere between 1982 to potentially as recent as 2001. He was convicted for 49 crimes, but confessed to an unbelievable 71, which makes him the second most prolific serial killer in the United States in terms of confirmed killings. Most of his victims were either sex workers or women in vulnerable circumstances, and through DNA profiling evidence in 2001, authorities were able to connect him to 4 of his crimes. From there, they made a deal with him where they would spare him the death sentence in exchange for the disclosure of the location of all of the missing women. Gary took the deal and was spared the death sentence, and instead was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
So he must have just been one of them caparonis. Like, he wanted to have one of these, because all these people seem to have like this weird, like, just like need to have, like, almost like a Napoleon complex, but in a way of like, they like, this is like their way of like creating like a legend or a legacy for themselves and shit, or some, I don't know, some weird psychological nonsense going on here that I just fully can't comprehend. But yeah, like, why would, like, why else would you admit to 70 something goddamn crimes, but then only be able to provide enough evidence or, supporting facts, I guess, or whatever, to be, confirmed, to be tied to only 4. Like, that is such a, like, the number is so far off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand, like, the dude who, only admitted to 40, but, he knew it was more. He just forgot names. And I mean, if you're, they're convinced that you did over 400, yeah, you're going to forget a few names, but like, still 40, like, that's a whole 10 times what the other dude was able to even be charged with, because they were just like, we just don't have enough supporting facts to even say, yeah, you did commit these other, 67 or whatever goddamn fucking crimes. Like, Like, why would you, like, okay, yeah, so there's some weird, like, I need a legacy. I want to be one of the greatest serial killers on the planet. Like, you know, mentalities or situations going on with that dude. That's just,
that he chose the type of victims he did because they were, quote, easy to pick up, and that he, quote, hated most of them, but he also called his crimes his career. So,
was it though, really?
Do with that what you will. In our number 3 spot today, we have...
Again, he over talking. I feel like it was just, I don't know. I feel like he's the one, if anybody's capping, I think he might be the capper right there. He might be the capper.
Rose West is an English serial killer who committed her crimes alongside her husband. He definitely also would make a spot on this list, but he decided to take his own life in 1995 after being arrested while awaiting trial. Really strong stand-up man. The terrible pair were investigated and subsequently arrested for taking 9 lives together, with Rose receiving an additional charge for another 10th life. During the court proceedings, against the advice of her counsel, Rose decided that she would testify herself, and what a trip that was. During her testimony, she sometimes was very tearful and dramatic, but of course, an act like that can be hard to keep up, so other times she was just cracking jokes and laughing. Imagine doing your tight 5 while you're on trial for the worst of the worst crimes. Luckily, it seems as though the jury hated that as much as I do, because they came back with a unanimous verdict of guilty on all 10 crimes. Get this, in prison, Rose West met Myra Hindley, which if you don't know who that is, she committed a bunch of very similar crimes with her husband, boyfriend, partner, whatever as well, and the two became besties, and they even had an affair throughout the whole thing. Rose is still trying to say that she was totally innocent and that Fred was completely responsible for all of the crimes. Also, to make the story even crazier, for those of you who watched part 1 of this series, the number 1 spot on the last one, her name was Joanna Denny. Well, Joanna was in the same prison as Rose, and in 2019, she threatened to kill her. Because of this, they had to move Rose secretly to another location because there was a very real threat to her life. In our number 2 spot today, we have Ted Kaczynski.
That is just so weird. Like, usually it's opposites attract, but like in that weird situation, they were like, they found a bond in the fact that they were serving time for this, for something super similar. Like, yeah, we do this. Like, that's what, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's so odd, bro. One of them was gonna, like, all it was gonna take was for one of them to get pissed off at the other. Like, you know, as you are around people and you start to figure out the buttons and the things that annoy them and annoy you, and one of y'all was gonna break. You know what I'm saying? One of y'all was gonna be like, you know what? This would just be better if this was my cell and not our cell. I'm taking you out. You know what I mean? Like,
Ted Kaczynski is most often referred to as the Unabomber due to the atrocious crimes that he committed. He was known for being quite bright from a young age, and it is believed that he had an IQ of about 167. He was accepted into Harvard at the age of just 16, and he went on to receive a PhD. At 25, things were still looking bright for the guy as he landed himself a job as an assistant professor at the University of California, Berkeley. But just 2 years later, he resigned from that position, and his life took quite a drastic and dark turn. In 1971, it is said that Ted moved to a remote cabin in Montana that had no electricity or running water. From 1971 until 1977, Ted learned to live a hermit, off-the-grid lifestyle while learning different survival skills. But once 1978 rolled around, he was ready to start his terror campaign. From here until 1995, he began a nationwide bombing against people who were involved with modern technology. He planted these weapons or would mail them, and in the end took the lives of 3 people and severely injured 23. Just like many of these kinds of people, his own ego and delusions got in the way, because on April 24th, 1995, he sent an anonymous handwritten letter that was addressed to the police via the New York Times. His own brother ended up recognizing his handwriting, however, and that's the tip that he gave to the FBI. Ted was then captured, tried, and sentenced to life in prison.
I don't remember that part. I mean, it's been a long time since I've watched like any of the, like, the little Unabomber documentaries or any of that stuff, but that's wild, bro. Your own brother, like, oh, I know that handwriting. There's only one month on the planet that write like that. Oh, that's my bro. You go ahead and call it.
No possibility of parole. In our number 1 spot today, we have Christopher Scarver. Okay, Christopher is a little different than the others on this list, and if you're unfamiliar with his story, you'll soon find out why. Basically, on June 1st, 1990, Christopher showed up at the Wisconsin Conservation Corps Training Program office, and there he demanded money from the man he found. When the man only gave him $15, Christopher went on to shoot him. Christopher then went and demanded money from another man and continued to shoot the man he had already shot until this second man gave him money. Christopher was caught and convicted for this horrible crime, but the story does not end here. On November 28th, 1994, Christopher was assigned work detail with two other inmates. One was Jesse Anderson, who had taken the life of his own wife, and the other was none other than prolific serial killer and monster himself, Jeffrey Dahmer. Well, when the three were left alone, Christopher took a bar from a piece of equipment in the exercise room and...
I remember this shit, the Jeffrey Dahmer fucking situation, because this dude was nuts. I want to say Jeffrey Dahmer, he said something, or there was something about him or something that the dude didn't like. And he just was like, you know what? This would be a better, more comfortable stay. Because I ain't going nowhere. Like, the dude was already, like, at terms with the fact he was not going anywhere for a long time. And said, fuck it. I want my stay to be comfortable. And this motherfucker here is not doing it. That's not how this is going to work. And he took his ass out. I remember
to basically beat and kill the other two. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. There's no excuse and no reason for any of the crimes these people.
He legitimately, he wasn't even like, there was no remorse, nothing sorry. He was just kind of like just straight like, yeah, I wanted my shit to be more comfortable, bro. Like that's
including these ones.
The basic.
But there is a very weird sort of poetic justice to that.
Yeah.
Christopher was tried again for these two crimes and received 2 more life sentences. Apparently, in 2012, it was announced that he wants to write a tell-all book about the killing of Dahmer, which is definitely bizarre, but we'll see if that ever comes to fruition, I guess.
It's not
all right, guys, that has been our
because this nigga got life sentences, not just one, multiple. He ain't going nowhere for a long time. So you got to make fucking do. And he probably ain't got nobody on the outside who's helping take care of him. You know, it sucks to sit there and be, trying to get your little 30 cents a day and shit. You know what I'm saying? Noodles is like 25, 30 cents in that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Probably even more than that. Like, shit, you buy a pack of noodles every day? Yeah, you got to do something. So he has a story now. That guy has a story. He can make books. He can make movies, and then he can have a more comfortable stay in prison for his life sentences, his very, very long stay. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. He trying to make things comfortable. He need a new TV in that bitch. You know what I mean? He needs some new drawers in that shit, some new shoes in that bitch. You know what I mean? He trying to have that pantry up in that bitch. You know what I'm saying? He trying to have a pantry in the cell. He want to have all the snacks. That is wild. But I do remember that one. That is a crazy number one. Even though he's not like I mean, you could call him serial killer because that's what he does. He's a killer. But compared to everybody else, he was light work, like in my opinion. And on this list, everybody was like 20, 30, 40 plus, 50 plus, accused of 300 plus, 400 plus. Like he had he was nuts. He was wild. He was crazy. You know what I'm saying? To shoot someone because they not gonna give you some money or only gave you $15, like it wasn't enough. It didn't satisfy your need for robbing him. But then to try to rob someone else and to guilt that person. Like I'm gonna keep busting. I'm gonna keep busting till you give me all your money. He's gonna get it. He's gonna feel all the pain for you hesitating. Like, bruh. Like that is nuts. Like you have to be 6 screws loose of a 6 screw situation. You know what I'm saying? All the screws is loose. Probably 6 of them missing. You know what I'm saying? You just don't even have nothing holding any of that logical side of you in. Like it's just pure emotion at that point. Like it's just pure emotion and you just make rash decisions on a regular basis every day, every second of the day type shit. Like that's just nuts, bro. So yeah, but it's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. And to sit there and have such a violent past or history like he does, and then still have almost like this poetic ending where he, knocked off one of the most hated people on the planet. Like such a catch-22. Oh man, that's wild. Anyway, I'll catch you on the next one.